Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Full Picture Property YouTube and podcast. So we help you on your way within your property journey. And today we've got Danielle from Macanta Interiors. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Gaz. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, it's brilliant. And what I've done is I've tried to do a bit of a dad joke, so hopefully it's okay. So this is about interior design, but I want to call it interior dough-sign because you're going to make us a lot of dough by showing us how to use interior design to our advantage to make more money within our property journey. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's the plan anyway.
Is that a good dad joke? That's awesome. So thanks for coming on. I mean, you're an interior designer. How long have you been an interior designer for?
So I started my content interiors about 6 years ago, but I graduated from university back in 2012.
So a qualified interior designer then?
Yes, yeah. I've wanted to do this since I was 15. I knew before that, but that was when I, knew what the term was for it. My parents built their own house when I was, around 14 or 15. So that cemented in my mind that, this is what I want to do.
So you got the passion. You got the passion early.
Yeah, it's more than a passion, probably. Yeah. My family would say that good. Anyway.
And it's great to actually have you on because I see a lot of people that say they're interior designers when they're not actually qualified interior designers. So I've got you on. I've got you a set of questions which we've talked through already to try and help people within their property journey, but based off academia, which is great, and your experiences. And as we move forward, it should help people out.
Hopefully, we can only try, right?
We can try. I know, and I'm positive it will. So the first question that I wanted to jump in on is, how would you say that interior design and spatial planning increases the value of a property?
So firstly, let's start with the actual data and facts. So there's been new data compiled of over 300 estate agents, and they say there's about a 12% increase in the sale value of a home. And I know that's not all areas of property sale, but it is a little bit easier to get data on that sort of thing. And then there is a body called the Home Staging Association, and they say that 90% of buyers spend about 2 seconds on an ad. So say if it's Airbnb or even a home sale, they spend about 20 seconds on something with a good photograph versus 2 on something with no or a bad photograph. So they're just some of the kind of data-driven kind of insights we've got. But then we have things like we see new categories on Airbnb showing the different experiences people want to have. So there's so many different categories you can choose from now. And it's all about which one you sit in. If it is indeed an Airbnb that you are trying to, promote. There's other things such as staged homes on average take half the time on the market to sell as an unstaged property, and that is data as well. It's about standing out from the competitors, and with how time poor I think people are nowadays, it's just essential to capture their attention. So I always say that when you're looking through properties, it's not necessarily about the style being perfect or to that person's exact taste, but it's about drawing them in to initially have a look at the property. It gives them a chance to actually decide if they can imagine themselves living in that space. And just good design in general will do that, even if it's not their personal style. So that's something I really like to get across. Like, don't be afraid to be too careful about the design you do. It's about doing good design, because a considered space is what makes good design, rather than just things like, I hate to use the word trends, but people focus too much on things like that, which I've got a lot to say on. So I think nowadays as well, people are looking for different experiences in their lives, especially since COVID. We've all had a bit of a change in kind of our mindsets, I think. And again, there's data to show that and prove that. So I think it's about creating that experience for them. So how can you stand out with your property to do that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's very interesting, really. Sorry, go on.
I just said, hopefully that's kind of answered your question.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting, and I think it's an interesting point where you talk about the amount that people spend on an advert. So for when they're looking at Airbnb or on SA, because that helps with marketing.
Absolutely, like
you spend
that.
on that
That is your
advert.
market.
Yeah, the more you spend on that advert, the more it's going to be looked at, and the algorithms on Airbnb or on Booking.com or any of the others, because they make money from sales. If they see people on your, say, your profile or whatever you're marketing, that will then increase that they think that that's going to be used to sell. So they'll put it to the top. So if anybody's searching for a certain area and then they're looking at whoever's there and they've put on perfect pictures, or they've looked at the flow, or they've looked at the design, and people are attracted to that design for longer, then the algorithms will see that it's an attractive house or property to rent. So it'll put it to the top automatically without paying the additional to put it to the top of the list.
So you're saving money in the long run, because the sooner you can get that property sold, on the market, rented out, whatever it is you're trying to do, then it's not costing you money whilst you have it sitting there. So it's kind of like, speculate to accumulate. That's what I always kind of say.
And that's what it's all about. So if you're a property investor, that's what you want, really. You want to sell it or you want to rent it out, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. That's really good. I want to move forward a bit with the next question. So when we're talking about interior design, I keep hearing the word flow. And okay, so what is flow? And can you tell us more about it? And what does this mean? What is flow?
So as interior designers, we learn about spatial planning. Was a large part of my degree. So I think often people think of, cushions and colors and paint and all the fluffy stuff. But for me anyway, that's not what I focus on. That is the exciting, fun side of it. And don't get me wrong, we do that. But it's about problem solving. It's about spatially planning to consider how people live, etc. So what I say flow is, it's kind of the eye's journey through a space. So the experience that they're supposed to have is harmonious. It should kind of feel seamless, consistent. This can be done in so many ways. So it can be done by using a consistent color palette to the same sort of flooring throughout a whole entire floor. But most importantly, it's concept. So I always say concept is king. And for anybody who doesn't really understand what concept is, it's the very first part of the planning stage that we do as interior designers. So it's about taking a brief from the client, or, having a brief from the end user if it is in property development. So it's understanding the kind of mindset and the behavior of that person, and asking them the right questions to understand what they need from that space. So we do that initially, and then we take what we understand from them and create a mood board with a variety of images. These are just images we take off Google if they aren't of our own projects, for example. And they are essentially about trying to filter down to get to a point where we're going in the right direction with the design. So, for example, if I got to know you as a person and started to understand who you are, what makes you tick, then we would kind of look at the right styles to suit, your personality, or indeed your budget or timeline in the property world, obviously. And then those images would be representative of that. So there could be any sort of concept from Scandinavian, mid-century, something a bit more poppy. Look at different styles in interior, in interior history. So maximalism, minimalism. So it's just a variety of images on a mood board. The idea is that you would speak with the client afterwards and discuss the mood board, see if you're going in the right direction. And it's almost a filtration process for them to say, okay, we're totally going in the wrong direction here. Or, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. That's what we discussed. You've hit the nail on the head. So it's a way to know how to move forward so that you save a lot more time when it comes to the design development stage and the specification of the product. So yeah, hopefully that answers what flow is about. So concept is the main thing. and then color palettes, seamless flooring. That's the best way to do it. And obviously, sorry, I mentioned spatial planning, having a layout that actually allows that. Sorry, that's so important to me that it comes naturally, you almost forget it, but your layout is essential in that as well. So not creating any barriers, having, sort of a foot plan and a flow that allows a person to easily navigate through a space, whether it's somebody that needs wheelchair access or just maybe it's a space that family are going to spend time in. So they need it to be suitable to allow that to happen. It's also zoning. So that's another area that I could talk about later. Zoning is really important. It's creating areas within areas. So in larger spaces, you often need to break them up. So it's about each area having kind of a functionality. And then on top of that, it's how you draw that area together so that they're kind of clear what the purpose of that space is. And also they're kind of drawn together, if that makes sense. So it's about helping a large space not feel overwhelming and to have kind of meaning and purpose.
Yeah, that's great. So for me, it's very sensory, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's about the
way it makes you feel.
experience somebody has in a space. And if the experience that they have, during their flow through it isn't a good, calm, kind of relaxed feeling, then, it's not good design. You shouldn't feel uncomfortable and kind of on edge as you move through a space. That's kind of more going in the psychology direction, but that is a major part of serious design anyway.
Well, that was going to be my next question about it, because it's about the way it makes you feel. And say if you were coming to design say I've got a new house and I want you to help me design it. Yes, get in there early, concept, get you there. You then talk to me, but it's going to be my design. But when we're talking about psychology, we need to understand psychology. Say if it's for Airbnb or for SA, service accommodation, for those that are unfamiliar with that term, Airbnb is service accommodation. But if it's for that, what would you do there? Would you look at the trends?
I personally try to stay away from the word trends at the very least. But yeah, trends is a tough one in interiors because not all designers like them. So I was at an event yesterday in London, and it was for Crown Paints, and they call them color insights rather than trends, because I think trends is very much something that somebody follows just because they're told to, a bit sheep-like. So as an interior designer, I don't want to do that, because trends more can age. It's about designing to a brief. So I would get to know you personally. If it was a residential project or if it was a development, it's get to know the target end user and what their needs are for that space, the purpose, the reason for using that. So for example, I've done a couple of rent-to-rent Airbnbs for a property in Sheffield, two properties in Sheffield, and one of them, they were both actually near the football stadium. So we knew that there was going to be a bit of a variety in the type of user there would be. So it could be the lads going to watch football at the weekend, or it could be somebody on kind of a long stay project for their career. And then it could also be somebody, on a weekend away with her family that might get in a game or go to, a show or something like that. So you had to be mindful, and it's about finding the balance for each of those categories of people, not alienating anybody at the same time and working within those tight budgets.
Yeah,
I feel like, have I gone off the question a little bit?
No, that's perfect. It's definitely, it's for a broad audience, I would say. And you've got to be mindful that you've got to capture that broad audience. As you mentioned, the football in Sheffield. Well, football and Sheffield don't go together. Sorry if I offended anybody. But as you can imagine, some footballers might just want to come for one night. They're going to be drinking, and do they really care so much? Whereas you might need somebody that wants to come to the city, because Sheffield, it's quite a big city, and there's a lot of people that will want to come to that area. You've got to still cater for them. So I totally get what you're saying. Totally get it. It's got to be so broad that it captures everybody and makes it welcoming.
sorry to interrupt. We also ask, questions about the kind of yield they want to make, what sort of figures are they trying to get, so that you're also, targeting that with the kind of level you're going to design to. And often the time restraints on these projects are so tight that because they need the income so quick, that it's there's only a certain amount you can do, really. So it's about finding the balance between the budget, the client you're trying to attract, and the timeline you've got. I've had exceptionally tight budgets of like $2,000, and then I've had budgets where it's up to 100K, and there's such a variety in that. So it is very much all about the brief, taking the brief, listening to who the user is going to be, and then it's almost like a little bit of a puzzle.
Yeah. I bet it's a good puzzle, especially if you've got a passion for it, which it seems you have. But $2,000, yeah. That's pretty impressive.
And she was really happy with it, and actually it's booked up. She was booked straight away. So you can, I'm not trying to say that I want to take on these sort of projects all the time, but that's exceptionally tight, and it's about being realistic about what you can do. That's nothing. It's a very, very small amount of money, and that wasn't starting from scratch with absolutely everything, and that wasn't interior design as such. It was more staging, so yeah, to be realistic, it's all about the stage you take on a project at. So that's why it's very hard. I often say, I often have clients say, can you give me any idea how much this will cost, or how much your fee will be? Until I get a very detailed brief, it's impossible to do that, because you could spend a little or a lot, and I will work to your budget even if it is tight, but I want you to be realistic about what you can achieve with that. And it doesn't matter what designer you're going to work with, whether it's Kelly Hoppin or me. You've got to be realistic, because that's the nature of kind of money and budgets.
Communication is key. Communication is key, and managing expectations, because what you don't want is a client to come back and say, this isn't what I wanted.
100%. So far, thank God, I've not had that happen. I've only had good feedback so far. So
you can't please everybody, so that's good that nobody's done that already.
You can't, but I think I am always honest from the beginning. Like, that's what McConth Interiors quite literally means in Irish. It is about being straightforward and, as you said, managing expectations and, trying to tick as many of their boxes as possible, but also, keeping up the communications right the process, which I think is vital. I'll get the clients as much involved or uninvolved as they want to be. And that's one of the main questions I ask at the beginning. So I just had a meeting with the other day with a potential new developer, and she kind of wanted to be involved from a creative perspective, but kind of, you do the work, and I might kind of get involved in the fun side and the inspiration side. So again, that was fine. I'm happy to adapt to kind of their flow.
Oh, that's great. It's really great. You've answered that question with the what is flow. I think it's important, like what you said, to get in there early and understand it. I think it's good that you work with the clients, and I love that communication is key, managing expectations. Was the $100,000, I've got to ask this, was the $100,000 hard to spend?
It was a renovation, so easy peasy.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. Yeah, definitely. When you
just
get
kitchens, like that. $100,000 just gone like that.
Kitchens and bathrooms, and that the average kitchen for a renovated property is between 25 and 40 for a decent one. And I think until people get to that point where they, they're ready to build or ready to renovate, they don't really have a clue of what things cost. And yeah, you can work to quite tight budgets, but it's, you're not going to get a solid surface worktop for, you know, in comparison to a laminate worktop, it's going to have a totally different feel. So it's about, as we said, going back to managing expectations.
And I suppose it depends on the size of the property, the location
100%.
of the property, everything, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah,
And everything after COVID is totally different. So.
Oh, tell me about it. I think that changed the game, didn't it? Completely changed the game. COVID, the amount that it costs now for materials, the amount that it costs for builders. And it's not that I don't want to pay it. It just changes everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're getting used to a whole new way of working.
And it brings me nicely on to, as we've talked about COVID, and we've talked about that things have changed. We now need to look at what are the biggest design mistakes that you see developers make.
Oh. So this is a fun one. This is the one I enjoy.
Right. Good.
We've touched on it a little bit already, and I constantly see it. So I myself often, go away and I start looking at, I've actually left it to my husband now to book anywhere we stay because I waste so much time trying to look through and find something. And my rule is, if it's not better than my own home, why would I want to stay there? So that, I think that's what these guys always need to be thinking about is, are you giving somebody a better experience than the place that they have left? And if you're not, then, well, you need to think about that. So first one being no concept. It's just this, you can tell kind of a mile away a property development project fairly often. You've got your furniture pack. They've picked a color to put on the wall. They've bought a lamp shade for a light. And then they've bought a canvas that has the same colors that are on the wall. And they've put it on the wall. And it's usually much too small for the space. And they're just randomly placed with lots of gaps in between. And that's my list. The matching furniture packs, if they don't, fit within a concept, having no concept at all, badly placed artwork. Window dressings is another one. See a lot of mistakes with window dressings. And I say mistakes, but I understand that people have their own opinions. But if we're going from kind of a design perspective, it's insignificant window dressings or no window dressings, which make, a space feel really cold and kind of can have a bit of a clinical feel. The purpose of window dressings is two things. One is obviously the practical element of, their thermal properties. But second, the most important one for us is they're meant to frame a window, but yet people use half-height curtains. So, the curtains that go to your windowsill and they just cut off. That will literally compress the room and the ceiling just gets lower and lower. Like, always, no matter what the project is, I always specify full-length curtains because it frames the window. It is a much more luxurious appeal and it just really just elevates the space. And anytime I see half-height curtains, I just think, it just reminds me of a kid's room. Not that I'm advocating them in there either. Your curtains should kiss the floor just. So it's not an easy thing to get right. But if you're going to spend kind of any money in a space, then I would put it into curtains. Also volume. That's another thing. The amount of pleats a curtain has, that's the difference in what will make it more luxurious and make it look kind of cheap and just, thrown together. So the more volume you can have in your curtains in terms of the space that they take up. So, first of all, not having them all compacted together and having, a little gap between each plate, but also having a lot of plates. So I would say, up to between 400 and 600 wide, if you can do that, if that's an easier way for you guys to think of it. But yeah, just nice voluminous thick curtains, not thin flimsy curtains. So I would spend your money on that over kind of any other item in a space, because that is what will give it that more premium feel.
It's very interesting. It's interesting to think, actually. There's a lot to consider there. And I know you've still got stuff to explain, but a lot to consider there. And even just for curtains, you've got
It's
to think
really,
about how it frames. It's also functionality as well, isn't it? Because you mentioned about the heat loss.
yeah. So my past client who I mentioned earlier, at the time we were doing this project, the budget was tight, as I mentioned, but she, understood kind of the value of them, and she wanted to use this space for, if anybody, we had a pull-out couch as well. So if anybody wanted to stay in that room, we needed significant curtains with a bit of a thermal property, obviously, to keep some heat in the space, but also blackout lining as well, so it would darken the room. So the budget wasn't there, but just a couple of weeks ago, we had some curtains fitted there and we spent a chunk on them. And now the space looks totally different. And it's really practical now. But if you can't do it then, wait till your property's making a little bit more money and then do it further down the line. So, it's a good way to think about it. She knew she was going to eventually do that. And, she has invested in it now that the property is doing well. So the other things I would say is I find people choosing paint first. In the design process, I would never choose the paint first. I actually choose that quite far into it. The reason for that.
Would you choose them? So what would you choose?
So because I do a concept, I'm working from a look or a theme. So I would specify flooring in terms of materials. I would specify flooring first, because if you think about it, there's absolutely an endless amount of options with paint and color, and you can get things color matched. And, there's all sorts of technologies now. For example, Crown Paints, who I collaborate with, they have a color cube, so they can scan their, an item that you may want to color match to, and then they can give you either a value below or above that to work with your space. So I think that's, key to consider those sort of things. But I understand we can't always do that in these sort of tight deadline budget projects, etc. But my point being that there's so many options. If you do paint first, you're drastically restricting the choices you have in everything else. If you choose the item that there's less options in first, then you can, it's much easier to layer upon that. You see so many people being stuck once they've chose the paint, and now they can't find the right, so far they can't find the right flooring, and you have to kind of go backwards and either start again or make it work, and then you're not happy with the kind of end outcome. So I do leave that one till a little bit further in. However, it's really important to have an idea of the general palette. So if you knew you were just doing neutrals, or you were doing really bright zingy colors, kind of having a bit of a kind of a variety in the general tones you want to have that in mind is important, obviously, because you will then know, obviously, the sort of floor and finish, you want to choose, because it can be a little bit harder to work with certain categories of color, and the different kind of textures and tones in a space can kind of overpower or underpower each other depending on how they're put together. So
yeah, and going back to the initial question as well, developers can 100% do this from the concept, as you mentioned. They can do this without, so don't pick your colors. Go and work out what you want to do with an interior designer first, and then build it from there. So start with what is the theme, and then keep building from there.
There's absolutely no reason to say why you can just work with a designer on the concept only. Just give me some sort of direction, and then I'll do the design development stage myself. I'll specify all the finishes and the products, and maybe come back to us for a final consultation. There is, I think people hear designer and they think, oh, I don't have the budget to work with you. You don't know. You don't have the budget to work with us. Have you had a meeting with us? Have you had a chat? We could get involved with you as little or as much as you want. And, there are solutions. I've just launched the DIY Designer Toolbox, which I won't push on here, but if anybody's interested, that is an affordable solution. If you do want to work with a designer, you know, and not kind of fully get a designer on board 100%. So just have a chat with us. We do offer no obligation. A chat doesn't cost anything, and you know, we'll have a brief and honest conversation about it. There isn't any pressure. We only want to work with people who want to work with us or who need to work with us. So, you know, that's how it is at the end of the day, really.
And that's what you need, folks. Somebody that's passionate to help out. And feel free to later, what we'll do is we'll discuss, you can push anything you want on here. This podcast and this YouTube channel is about helping people out. And I wouldn't have invited you on if I didn't think you're going to help people out. So after we finish the questions, what we'll do is got a bit of a game. So we'll have a look at some interior design where we can have a look at what you've been discussing. And then we'll talk about what you're doing within your business. So the toolbox that you've just mentioned, which is great. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I want to talk about, because I think it's going to be a hot topic, is Airbnb. And when we say Airbnb, we're talking about service accommodation. So for this, design is particularly important. Can we talk about why design is particularly important for Airbnb?
Sure. So we kind of touched on it at the beginning. We mentioned the whole categories thing in, you know, the Airbnb site. It's now about the type of experience people want to have. So I think how we're spending our money is different nowadays. And I think people want a bit more value for their money. So they want an experience. And I think with how social media is now, there is optimum opportunity to be seen. So the experience is essential. People's memories. You need to be memorable if you want to be rebooked. If people know that they are going to kind of do the same thing, or they're booking that property for the same reason, and they enjoyed that, they often don't want the hassle of looking for something else because they felt that comfort there. It ticked their boxes. So, you know, they'll go back to that. And another thing is about being, I hate to say the term Instagrammable, but, you know, unfortunately is the truth. People take pictures nowadays nonstop, and they want to be seen in quirky, interesting environments that stand out, that is going to give them a good backdrop for, you know, their online presence, I suppose. And with the rise in influencers and that sort of thing, I think you just need to stand out. It's just so important. And I think if people feel something when they book the space, those emotions kind of drive, you know, their motivation to talk to their family and friends. You're having a really significant impact in somebody's life when it's an Airbnb, because, you know, this could be them trying to escape away from their really stressful, you know, day-to-day life, or it could be they're just getting over a major illness, or, you know, they've just maybe gone through treatment for something and they need an escape. They need a sort of a haven, somewhere to kind of heal and you know, kind of reset. So you could be having that effect on them, and it could actually physically impact their health because of it. Another thing is, if it is Airbnb and it's booked for somebody that's there for, you know, work, it can be a lonely time if you're working away from home. You're out of your comfort zone. You're away from family, and if you feel that bit of comfort, you know, you're likely to want to go back. So if you have influence over that within your role, then, you know, your boss is more likely to maybe rebook that same place. So also, if you're out with family and friends, you know, you're out to have a good experience. You're just really touching people's lives when it's, I think, an Airbnb property. It's a different person that it attracts, rather than just somebody who books into a hotel, maybe. That's kind of how I think of it, maybe.
No, great answers. I think it's interesting that you brought up social media. Do you think social media has influenced interior design, or do you think interior design is still influencing social media, or a bit of both?
Probably a bit of both, but probably the first one. I think there's much more people trying to do interior design or what they think interior design is, which is not always positive for us, because often people think they know what they're doing, and because I'm not the most confident, I'm confident speaking to people one-on-one, and I'm obviously passionate about what I do, but I'm not, oh, look at me. So I don't often, find myself kind of showing my home off or doing that sort of thing. And they are the types of people that are confident to do that. So it can have a negative effect on kind of you and your business if you're not willing to get out there. So they're good at the promoting of what they're doing, whether they're doing DIY in their home or that sort of thing. So yeah, it's had a negative impact on us. And then I think it's also then filtering down to, people think that that's good design. So they're following what they're being told by these, people who are not qualified really to tell them what to do. I'm not necessarily saying they're wrong all the time, but as designers, we follow a key set of design principles. You have balance, proportion, emphasis, unity, and variety. There's a few others, but they are the core elements to it. And there is some sort of backing behind why we do what we do. And if you walk into a space that's being considered and designed rather than just nice things have been put in a space, because don't get me wrong, I do think that there are many people that can pick nice things, pick nice colors, but considering how a space is curated is design. There's a lot more to it than just pretty colors and cushions. So yeah, I think it is starting to filter down the value of design to a degree. But on places like LinkedIn, it's not. So if you're looking for inspiration, although it's not the typical place you would go, workplace design is huge right now. Businesses are putting a lot more money into that. And it's absolutely blowing up. So you see some really amazing design there. Although it's not residential, you can still take kind of influence from it. But yeah, I think sometimes there's positives and negatives to it. Just be aware of who and what you're looking at, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's more. This is more for Airbnb more than some of the other ones. I'd suggest. You can tell me if I'm wrong there.
No,
But I
definitely.
see a lot of influencers will be talking about where they've been, how it made them feel, the best pictures when they're there, rather than taking pictures in their own home.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
But the bottom line is, and the reason I wanted you to come on this is because it's going to make you more money. It'll make people more money if they either stage their properties or look at the flow when they're developing or look at how they want to market it on Airbnb or any SA platform.
100%. You've got to be memorable.
Be memorable. Communicate.
The right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for coming on my podcast and YouTube channel. Really appreciate it. And thank you for giving your time. So everybody who's listening right now, Danielle gave her time for free. So I can't afford to pay. But Danielle came for free to give back to the community, to make sure that you are safe and making sure that you understand the processes to put more money in your pocket. Now, the thing that I want to give back is I want to give you a bit of a plug. So let's talk about how can people contact you? And then also you mentioned, what did you mention earlier on? Was it a toolbox that you'd created?
Yeah, the DIY designer toolbox. So firstly, thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. I feel like it's given me a bit of a boost for the day. I really enjoy doing, this sort of thing. And I'm genuinely actually just passionate about it. So I could talk all day and often do. But the DIY designer toolbox is what I'm really trying to get out there. So it's an affordable solution to an alternative to working with a designer directly. So I wanted to make design inclusive to everyone. I just don't feel that it should be a luxury. I think too many people think that they can't afford to work with a designer, first of all. And let me just say, you don't know that until you inquire. And secondly, like, if that is how you feel, then there is a new solution. So the DIY Designer Toolbox is a series of educational videos. It's a DIY designer planner, so a physical planner book, and it's a sample box and then a Zoom call. So the idea is that I'm giving you the tools to do your own design. So it's, I would say, mostly aimed ideally for renovations. It could be used for a single room because it is really affordable, but those who kind of have a bit of a bigger project. So the idea is they watch the videos in their own time whilst they're doing the dishes. You can be listening in to what I have to say. You don't have to see my face if you don't want to. So you kind of take on board the education. I run you through the process that as an interior designer we go through so that you can follow it in the same way to try and get better results than maybe if you were to take on this yourself. And as you do that, then you can work your way through the planner. So we have everything in here from sections to follow the design process. So concept, floor plans, design development, tips in there. Also areas to create your budget. So we've got little documents. We've also got kind of your more renovation relative things. So tick lists for the various trades you might need to work with, snagging lists, areas to kind of create, mind maps so that you can think of all your ideas and get them down in paper instead of, forgetting about them. So it's really a tool to aid you to get organized, get planned before kind of any build or any renovations might start. So it's also a good tool to work with your contractors to show. So everything's kind of in one space. So the idea is I send that out to you in the post after you've kind of, once you've started watching your videos, you'll see that in the post, start working your way through. And then once you send me back some information from that, I would send you out a personalized sample box. So this is a physical box in the post containing a variety of samples that are suitable for your project and your budget, etc. So the idea is that you will then try out those materials, be it paint, whatever it is that's relevant to your project. And based on your concept, because we've talked about concept a lot, haven't we? Those are the sort of materials I'm suggesting that would work. Now, it might not be that you definitely use that exact thing, but you're on the right tracks. And then you've got an opportunity to have a Zoom call with me. And if you want to run through the ideas you've come up with. But what I wanted to really give people on this was also an opportunity to get some trade discounts. So I'm collaborating with some partners on giving you those trade discounts in the box so that, you're availing of this because you need a more affordable option. So let's give you some discounts as well at the same time, but still getting a quality product. So with my whole holistic approach, I want to try and, as much as I can, work with businesses that or brands that align kind of with me. So I've got Crown Paints on board, and they really impress me with all their sustainability, all that they're doing for that side of things. They're kind of low VOC paints and they're clean, breathe, easy paints as well. So that ticks my box because I'm all about, health and wellness. That's my other passion. So I just wanted to bring an affordable option to the masses and see that design isn't a luxury. To me, it's a necessity. Everyone needs to be surrounded by good, positive spaces because, well, why not feel better if you can? You're still going to spend money on your space no matter what, whether it's good or bad design. So why not do it better than you would have done before? So the box is retailed at the moment, because it's just launched, at £97.99, and you get all 4 elements for that. And it will be rising after kind of a period of time, more up towards 150, 140 kind of pounds. So we haven't got to that stage yet. Everything's ready to go. I'm ready to get the boxes all wrapped up for you. So if that's something that you feel would be beneficial to your project, please do get in touch. I've got lots of information about it on my social medias. I have TikTok, etc. So I'm on Instagram at @McConta Interiors. Same handle for my TikTok. And also I'm on LinkedIn. So please connect with me there if you're interested. And yeah, hopefully I've explained a bit more about it. We've got a landing page for you to pop onto as well to see lots more information about the Interior Designer Toolbox. But other than that, I offer interior design and spatial planning services from concept to completion for residential or commercial spaces with a holistic approach. And that's me.
Well, that's phenomenal. And can I say something that's controversial, but not controversial to you?
Go for it.
The controversial, what I'm going to say is it's the woman and man divide, and I'm not trying to split it at all. So let's summarize that. A woman that loves interior design, that is phenomenal for them. They're going to be able to get samples. They're going to be able to see colors. They're going to be able to discuss with you. They're going to be able to proactively go somewhere where they can put their thoughts onto a platform, and then that will develop what they're going to be, their concept.
So that's the whole idea. Is it's aimed at two people, either somebody who feels they don't have the budget to work with a designer, or somebody who doesn't want, not that as designers we do take over your project, because we work with you if you want to. But yeah, those who feel like they want to do the project themselves and they have the time to, but maybe they just want somebody there by their side to kind of, feedback what they've come up with. So, you can use it as in how you choose. That makes sense.
And then I'll go on to the man. So a man typically wants things done quick. They don't, not sound bad, they don't particularly care. They should care. So I will state that they should. That's why I said it might be controversial. But you're going to have discounts. You're going to have a box there to help. It's also going to help if it's a husband and wife, or a partnership where it's male and female, where one's into design and one's not. So you've got somebody that's into design with all the tools there that's going to help them save time. And they got the discounts that's going to save them money, which is what the guy will want. So I think it's a mix. So the controversy is about the differences between males and females. So save time, save money, do it right from the beginning.
Yeah, it's 100% about saving time and money. Like just having a structured flow to follow. And, it's the overwhelm that I want to get rid of. I think that's half the reason why people either don't put in as much of an effort, or make the wrong choices, or, don't be brave about their choices, because it just feels like, whoa, this is too much. And actually it's an exceptionally stressful time to go through a renovation or just redoing your property, because you've got your everyday living to contend with at the same time. So that's what I want to do for people, is try and just help them see it as a bit of a smoother and more, let's say, that is possible for them.
Well, I think it's a great concept. I think it's going to help people out massively. It'll cut the time out, save them money. Like what you just said, you've hit the nail on the head. What do people want? I'm going to give it them. So I think it's perfect. And I think that's a good way to wrap this show up. So again, I want to say thank you. What I'll do is I'll pop your details into the bio as well. I can add a slide to the end, so I can stick a slide on the end. But also when I start promoting this, please look in the comments, because what I'll do is I'll stick Danielle's details in there of how to contact her on various social media, plus emails and whatever else. But thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.